You were supposed to explain to me your methods for memorizing the buttons on the Kermit.
My lady, I'm so sorry. You know I was very busy. And the KERMIT mk3 has a lot of features to cover. I promise I will do it very soon.
It's always the same story every day. I'm going to end up believing that you don't even know how to use the Kermit yourself. Will I have to take preset manage man out of his freezer for me to learn them?
Okay, alright. Let's get this over with, but I'm warning you, you better pay attention to my explanations, or you might get confused very quickly.
Well, finally, it's about time.
Now go get prepared, because we're going to review all the button combinations. But if I can give you a piece of advice, I strongly suggest going through this lesson, step by step. Don't try to learn a new combination too quickly. The KERMIT mk3 is not a module that can be learned in one session.
Alright, let's dive in.
I think the first thing to get familiar with is the first two channels. Right now, forget channel C and D. Before getting into the full complexity of the Kermit, we have to understand the basics. And channel A and channel B are very easy to catch. So for this lesson, let's focus only on the first two channels. First, we're going to make sure the Kermit is in free mode. If the preset button is glowing red, this means a preset is active. Press this button until the LED turns off. The small LED screen always indicates the mode, type and frequency of each channels, along with the global tap tempo, which is adjustable at the very bottom of the module. All changes made to the channel will appear on this screen. The three main parameters are adjustable with their own knob: waveform, amplitude, and frequency. The LED screen will temporarily show any modification. Three other hidden parameters are also available: the phase, the waveform bank, as well as the fine-tuning, are accessible by pressing and holding the button of the targeted channel while turning the knobs. Turning a knob of any channel, while pushing the button of the opposite one, is completely forbidden for now. It's not the same function, and we will see this step in the upcoming lesson. Usually, the Kermit opens with LFOs assigned to its channels. To change the output type, you need to press and hold the encoder, and then press the button of the desired channel. This will allow us to access the menu of the targeted channel, and make some changes to it, if needed. Please note that with the KERMIT mk3, the order in which the buttons are pressed is extremely important. Swapping the order of the button combination could result in something very different. For tonight, your task is only to focus on the basics of the first two channels. So this completes the boring lesson 1. Not too complicated so far, don't you think? We will still be focusing on the first two channels for this lesson, and we will learn how to assign CV controls on the parameters, and also assign some cross-modulations between channel B and A. We won't be using channel C or D for now. Before we go deeper into the whole Kermit possibilities, we need to be in perfect control of the first two channels. So, assigning voltage control to those channels is extremely simple. You simply press and hold the encoder, and turn the knob of the targeted parameter. Please note that the only parameters that can be controlled in voltage are the following: frequency, waveform and amplitude. Each parameters can have its own attenuated version of the incoming CV signal. If you want to erase the CV controls you just assigned, go to the menu settings of this channel, and activate the function, clear CV. Let's try to send some cross modulations. Let's have channel B, controlling the waveform of channel A. Just press and hold the channel B button, and turn the waveform knob of channel A. Now, without patching cables, channel B have instant control. It's simple. Press the button of the opposite channel, and turn the knob of the targeted parameters. Let's try amplitude and frequency. Now why don't we try to have the first channel doing some cross modulation too? Some insane modulation can occur. Not very complicated, admit it. At any time you can enter the channel's menu settings, and clear the cross modulation with the function, clear xmod. Let's do that for both channels. Why don't we try to implement everything we learned in this lesson? We might obtain some crazy results. With just the power of the first two channels, the Kermit is a module with infinite possibilities. If I may give you some advice for now, for the next few days, focus only on the lessons that we have just reviewed. Practice until you have no hesitation. You need to be ready, because the next lessons will include the other channels. Okay, time to attack those little channels at the bottom. You will see that it is not so complicated, but still, pay close attention and stay focused. Channels C and D have almost all the functions of the first two channels. Since they only have one input jack, they have more restricted controls, and to access all of their functions, they need to borrow some of the controls of channels A and B. And this can complicate things for some. But don't worry, we will go on step by steps. First let's put channel C in oscillator, push and hold the encoder, then push the CD button. Then set the type to oscillator, and confirm by pushing the encoder. Now let's adjust the parameters. Turning the knobs will adjust the main frequency. To adjust the fine-tuning, simply hold the CD button, then turn the C knob. Now to adjust the amplitude, hold down the channel A button, then turn the C knob. Remember, the letter A for amplitude. Now to adjust the phase, push and hold CD and the A buttons, then turn the C knob. Remember the letter A, as for the first letter of the word phase. Simple stupid trick, but it works for me. To adjust the waveform, push the B button, then turn the C knob. To change the waveform's bank, push and hold the CD and B buttons, then turn the C knob. Another stupid trick to remember the combination B, as for waveforms are stored in banks as the first letter of the word bank. Now the B button will help you remember this. If the trick is good enough for me, it's probably good enough for you. The combinations are exactly the same for channel D. You only have to turn the D knob instead. Before going to the next lesson, I really suggest to practice those controls for a couple of hours. Okay. Are you ready for the fourth lesson? This one is much simpler than the previous one. In this lesson, we will learn how to use channels C and D to cross-modulate the A and B channels. The key to understand the button combinations for cross-modulation on the first two channels is to remember that the first pushed button is always the modulation source. Let's have the channel C smoothly morphing the waveform of the A channel. Press and hold the CD button, then adjust the amount with the waveform knob. So, holding down the CD button before turning any knobs of the first two channels will adjust the cross modulations affected by the C channel. As simple as that. Now let's delete all cross modulation on the A channel. Hold down the encoder, and press the A button to open the menu, and go clear all the X mod. Now for the D channel. The key is almost the same as the C channel. Hold down the CD button, then push the encoder, and then turn any of the knobs of the first two channels. And there you go, instant cross modulation. You can combine both C and D channel over the same parameters. Let's have them fight over the cross modulation. Now let's again clear all that cross modulation. Now let's have the B channel cross modulating the A channel, and let's have the C and D channels cross modulating the B channel. The KERMIT mk3 is an insane amount of surprises when you start using all its functions. Meticulous adjustments will allow hours of happy accidents. Hope you're not too confused with all those lessons. We're almost done, let's keep going. Alright, lesson 5. Now let's learn how to use and assign CV control on the C and D channels. Channel C and D shares the very same and only jack input. But even with this restriction, each CV control can have its own level of attenuation. It is also good to know that this input won't keep track of the 1 volt per octave when it's assigned to frequency. If you remember the lesson 3, assigning CV for channel C and D is very similar. Turning the frequency knob will adjust its frequency. Pushing the A button, then turning the knob will adjust the amplitude. And pushing the B button, then turning the knob will adjust the waveform. To assign external CV on any of the parameters, do just like adjusting any parameters on the C or D channels, but push and hold the encoder before turning the knob. First you need a patch cable. Let's assign the CV to the frequency. Push and hold the encoder, then turn the C knob. Let's assign the same signal to control the waveform. Push and hold the B button, then push and hold the encoder, then turn the C knob. This very lonely external signal can be assigned to multiple parameters of the C and D channels. The combination is exactly the same for the D channel, but you just have to turn the D knob instead. Not so complicated after all. The KERMIT mk3 is not a module that you can learn in one evening. Each combinations will be printed slowly on your memory, step by step, one lesson every day. Okay. Now you better listen to Uncle Teddy carefully, because this lesson will explain the most complicated combinations of the KERMIT mk3. The cross modulation applied on channel C and D is the most extreme one. At first glance, these combinations seem to have no logic, but on the contrary, there is one. Combinations always start with the source of modulation, so remember to press the source button first. Next you need to involve the target, or the destination if you prefer. So push the button of channel C or D. Every time you are going to do cross modulation on channel C or D, you have to press the button of one of the first 2 channels, and always include the CD button. Then, you need to enter the code of what I like to call the key. The key is determining which of the 3 parameters you will involve in the cross modulation. So the most important part to remember, for easy use of cross modulation on the C and D channels, are the key codes that target the parameters. And I'm going to reveal to you my personal trick that has been approved by thousands of people around the world. Like my friend, John Gilbert for instance.
Game changer.
And many others, but we don't have time for this. So we remember that there are 3 adjustable parameters. The trick to remember the key code for each parameters is very simple. To assign to the frequency, I have to use the encoder. To assign to the amplitude, I have to use the tap button. To assign to the waveform, I have to use the tap button and the encoder. So remember the letters of these words, and it will make it easier for you. A bit of a ridiculous tip you might say, but it seems to work for a lot of people. So that's why I thought it would be a good idea to share this tip with you. If we summarize, we have the source, the target, the key code, and then we have to turn the knob of the desired channel. It will still require a good finger gymnastics, but you will get used to it. So practice memorizing the key codes well. Frequency, encoder, amplitude, tap button, waveform, tap button and encoder. Not so complicated. But what about the C and D channels, cross-modulating each other's? It's not really more difficult. You have to keep in mind that the source and the target are the same button. So simply press the CD button, then do the key code, and finally turn and adjust with the knob of the channel on which you want to apply this modulation. Couldn't be more easy. That's enough theory. Let's put this knowledge into practice. Nothing beats a good workout on the battlefield. Great. Let's see if we learned anything today. We will use channel C as an oscillator. The first channel is random voltages, and channel B and D are in LFO. Channel A will modulate the frequency of channel C. Now, push and hold the A and the C button, then press the encoder, and finally adjust the amount with the C knob. Channel B could be modulating the amplitude of channel C. Push and hold the B and C button, then press the tap button, and finally adjust the amount with the C knob. It may not be so obvious on camera, but I'm using my thumb to push both the C and tap button at the same time, saving the other hand for knob control. Let's make channel D cross-modulating the waveform. Push and hold the CD and tap button, then push the encoder, and finally adjust the amount with the C knob. The first channel could cross-modulate the frequency of the D channel. Push and hold the A and C D button, then push the encoder, and finally adjust the amount with the D knob. Now channel B could do amplitude modulation on the D channel. Push and hold the B and C D button, then press the tap button, and finally adjust the amount with the D knob. When you assign lots of inner cross-modulation with the Kermit, I suggest taking some time to adjust the amplitude and frequency of all the channels. Don't be afraid to risk any of the possible cross-modulations. The display screen will indicate any changes. Keep an eye on that screen. It's a good way to learn and validate if you have memorized the combinations properly. Here's some simple bonus patches. If you haven't already, you might want to check out my Kermit I module only video. There's not much information there, but you'll have a small idea of the power of this insane module, and above all, it's completely free. Well, my lady, that concludes this lesson on the Kermit button combinations. It may not be so obvious, but take it step by step. This will become apparent the more you use it.
Thank you very much. Finally, you are useful to me for a change.
Hey, a little respect please. The Kermit mk3 is very special and complex. An insane module equipped with 4 channels that can be mostly anything. We had to take the time necessary to translate this lesson well.
You're right, Dr. Teddy. I hope people learned a few tricks today and will spread the Kermit love forever, and ever, and ever.
The Kermit mk3 will make you happy. Infinite modulation for all the nation. The Kermit's your friend until the end. The Kermit mk3 is there with me, is there with me, is there with me.